وإياكم وغفر الله لي وإياكم وجعل الآخرة والجنة مثواي ومثواكم اللهم آمين. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending peace and blessings upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the topic in the Al-Yamaani, as possibly perhaps predicted, is about murder. Killing the innocent people, murdering people. It was brought to my attention recently that I believe in this area, without mentioning the name, there were literally 20 deaths, 20 of our young men who were gunned down, who were murdered within the last 2 weeks. And by the way, not for this community to feel bad, because this is an issue, this is a problem, this is a grave problem that is happening across the country. I've been to other communities as well, and the problem is still there. You find that this noble and unique religion came for 5 objectives, for 5 reasons. One of the reasons is, Hifdul Aql, is to preserve the intellect, to preserve your intellect. The second one is, Hifd ad-Din, is to preserve your religion. And then Hifd al-Mal, that is to preserve your wealth. And then to preserve your dignity. To also preserve your dignity. And of that is Hifd al-Nafs, is to preserve you, to preserve your life. The life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, it is a hiba from Him. And the only one who should have authority to take that away is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and no one else. You find that this started first with, this happened long time ago between 2 sons, Qabil and Habil. The first disobedience, the first usyan that happened on this earth was between Qabil and Habil. Habil was somewhat jealous, or Qabil was somewhat jealous of his brother Habil. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about this in the Quran. He says, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ بْنَيْ آدَمَ بِالْحَقِّ إِذْ قَرَّبَا قُرْبَانًا فَتُقُبِّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا ولم يتقبل من الآخر قال لأقتلنك قال لئن بسطت إلي يدك لتقتلني ما أنا بباسط يدي إليك لأقتلك لماذا؟ إني أخاف الله رب العالمين. The story happens this way. Both of the sons of Adam, Qabil and Habil, they offered a sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sacrifice of Qabil was rejected. The sacrifice of Habil was accepted. So what happens is, out of envy and out of jealousy, Qabil kills Habil. Qabil kills Habil. So who's the first one to commit such atrocity on this earth? It is Qabil. So everybody who commits murder in this dunya, Qabil has a nasib of that. Qabil has a nasib of that. Anybody who commits this atrocity of murder, of killing, of gunning someone down, of shooting someone down, of spraying somebody, of doing a drive-by, Qabil will have a portion of that, a kifl of that. You find in the Quran, there is one verse that stands out remarkably in Surah An-Nisa. And the wa'id that follows this, you don't even see this wa'id with the mushrikeen, really. When you look at the wa'id of a person who kills another Muslim intentionally with the sole purpose of taking his or her life away, and I don't want to be accused of being misogynistic here when I say he or the man or the boy, we're also including the women in there. So when I say he, I'm including the women as well. But you don't find this rampant within the female gender. You find it more within the male gender. You find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He describes this punishment of a person who intentionally kills another Muslim, you don't even find this punishment for the munafiqeen. He says, yes, and munafiqeen fi dark al-asfali min an-nar, they're at the lowest pits of fire. But when He talks about a person killing another person intentionally, He says the following: وَمَن يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمُ خالدا فيها وغضب الله عليه ولعنه وأعد له عذابا عظيما. Allahu Akbar. This should bring us on our knees for anybody in here who's out gangbanging, anybody out here who's claiming to be a thug or a gangster, or you're trying to keep it real, or you're running around with the homies, or whatever you want to claim yourself to be hard. I want you to pay attention to this, because Allah is speaking about وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا من أداة العموم. Whomsoever kills the believer متعمدا intentionally فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمْ. Immediately your reward, the consequence for you is the hellfire. خالدا فيها, in there forever. خالدا فيها. وَغَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ, is that Allah's curse will be on you. Allah will be extremely angry and mad with you. وَلَعَنَهُ, and Allah will curse you. وَأَعَدَّ لَهُ عَذَابًا عَظِيمًا. And on top of all of that, the topping on the cake is that you will have severe punishments in the afterlife. There's only one verse in the Quran that has the combination of 5 punishments in one verse. The only verse in the Quran where you have a combination of 5 punishments in one verse is in this verse. And Allah tells us also in Surah Al-Furqan, وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَدْعُونَ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ, and those who do not associate partners with Allah. وَلَا يَقْتُلُونَ النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ, and those who do not kill the innocent soul. After that, وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَزْنُونَ, and those who do not commit zina or adultery. Immediately after associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, immediately in second place comes what? Killing the innocent soul. This, unfortunately, my brothers and sisters, is becoming a huge problem. You wake up, there's a janazah. You wake up, there's a janazah. You go to sleep, there's a janazah. You look on Facebook, there's a janazah. You look at WhatsApp, there's a janazah. It's not the elderly. It's not the elderly who are dying of diabetes or heart attacks. La. Even though it's there. But what we find almost day in and day out, the shabab, the young men who are gunning and shooting down. And then you find the names of Muhammad, Marsami, Gulad, Abdullah, and these Muslim names. Now the Sunnah tells us that the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يزال المؤمن في فسحة من دينه ما لم يصب دما حراما, that the believer will continue to be under the shade, under the blessings and the mercy of Allah, so long as that person does not interfere and kill an innocent soul. You're having a good time with your religion. You're under the mercy of Allah. You're under His shade. You're under His blessings and bounties, so long as a condition that you're not messing with the blood of someone else. You're not taking someone's life away. We also find in another hadith, my brothers and sisters, where the Prophet ﷺ says, اجتنبوا السبع الموبقات, to stay away from the 7 very grave sins. And one of them, he says, immediately after what? Associating partners with him. Number 2 is that you go and you kill somebody. And you go and you kill somebody. In another hadith, we find that the Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِذَا أَشَارَ الْمُسْلِمُ عَلَى أَخِيهِ بِحَدِيدَةٍ لَعَنَتْهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ وَإِنْ كَانَ أَخَاهُ مِنْ أَبِيهِ أَوْ أُمِّهِ, that any Muslim who confronts or just waves a pistol or a knife or a sword, anything of metal, in the face of another believer, the angels will curse that person, even if that person is of his blood relative, his brother or his sister. And how many of people, I've seen a video with my very own eyes, a man ended up shooting his own son. He had a pistol in his hand, and he thought the pistol was empty. He was playing around with it until he ended up shooting his own flesh and blood. قَتَلَ فَلَذَةَ كَبِدِهِ, he killed his own son, thinking that there were no bullets in the chamber. And wallahi, how many people who were playing around with their guns? And it has never been easy. The access to artillery and to guns and to AKs and to these guns that people go out and play with, the access to a lot of these things has never been easier. My brothers and sisters, the qissah of Usama ibn Zayd resonates with all of us. He was out on a sariyah and he saw a man from a distance. And the man gave salams to Usama ibn Zayd. Usama ibn Zayd thought that that man gave him salams out of thought. He thought that he was fearful for his life, and he did not take into consideration that he was a Muslim, that he was a fellow Muslim. So what did he do? He gives him salams, and Usama ibn Zayd in return ends up killing the man. وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ أَلْقَى إِلَيْكُمُ السَّلَامَ لَسْتَ مُؤْمِنًا. Do not say to those who give you salams, you're not a believer. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, when he went back and he told him and he shared this story with him, He said, Ya Rasulullah, A, B, C, X, Y, Z happened. He says, أَوَقَتَلْتَ? The Prophet got angry, and rightfully so. He says, you killed him? He says, yes, Ya Rasulullah, but I killed him because he said, La ilaha illallah, out of fear of me killing him. The Prophet said something really important here for all of us to seriously consider. He says, أَوَشَقَقْتَ عَنْ قَلْبٍ? Did you open his chest to see why he said, La ilaha illallah? He said, did you open his heart to make sure that he said, La ilaha illallah, out of fear from you? Which is a sign for us Muslims that people say never judge the book by the cover has to be the most stupidest, the most idiotic thing I've ever heard the most intelligent people say. Never judge the book by the cover is the stupidest thing I've heard intelligent people repeat and say. Really. Because the only thing we can judge by is by the outward. You said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. I have to take in that you're a Muslim. Damuka laysa mubaha. Damuka haram. Even if you're a non-believer, there are certain Muslim youth who believe that simply because someone shares a different theological approach than myself, then that person becomes mubah dam. There are certain of the youth that believe that simply because another person is an atheist, a Jew or a Christian, that now allows me to kill them. Like we see some murders and some instances that happen in Europe and other places. Why? Because they're a non-Muslim. That does not give us that right, my brothers and sisters. In the Prophet ﷺ, Usama ibn Zayd, as a matter of fact, Usama ibn Zayd, that day he says, وَدِدْتُ لَوْ أَنِّي أَسْلَمْتُ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ. I wish I would have accepted Islam that day, out of regret and remorse of what he had done. Radiallahu anhu. We find that the Prophet ﷺ, when he talks about Muslims, non-Muslims are generally categorized into three categories. Mu'ahad wa musta'man wa dhimmi. Mu'ahad is a person who has an oath, an agreement between him and the Muslim government. For example, when someone goes to Mogadishu or someone goes to Somalia and they have a visa, no one can threaten that person who came in under a visa. لأنه ماذا؟ لأنه معاهد من قبل الدولة. That is not permissible for you to do. Even if they're out doing haram and they're drinking and you hate that for the sake of Allah, it does not give you the green light as a Muslim, as a ghayyur, to offend them, to threaten them, or for you to do anything to harm them. Why? Because the government gave them the stamp of approval. You have a problem, you take it up with the Muslim government, you do not approach nor harm them. Why? Because they came in feeling secure. So that's a mu'ahad. A dhimmi, number two. A dhimmi is a non-Muslim living in the Muslim lands. You do not have the right to harm them in any way, shape, or form. We do not have the right to physically harm them or to verbally abuse them. I see there's some room, so please, if you have room in front of you, do occupy that spot, or if you have room alongside of you, just so we can make room for the brothers and sisters who are coming, or mainly the brothers, forgive me. Now the Prophet ﷺ, listen to this hadith he says, and my voice is raspy a little bit, forgive me. He says, من قتل معاهدا لم يرح رائحة الجنة وإن ريحها لتشم من بعد 40 والله أعلم 40 سنة. The Prophet ﷺ says, whomsoever kills a mu'ahad, a person who we have an oath with, he will not smell the fragrance of paradise, and its fragrance is smelled from a distance of 40 miles. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, من قتل معاهدا فأنا بريء منه وإن كان المقتول كافرا. Allahu Akbar. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, whomsoever kills a mu'ahad, I am innocent of that Muslim, even if the person who was killed was a non-Muslim, was a disbeliever. So we talked about a mu'ahad, we talked about a dhimmi. The last portion that we do not have the right to harm them in any way, shape, or form is a musta'man. A musta'man is a non-Muslim who seeks asylum in Muslim lands. So for example, someone comes to a Muslim land, even if he's a muharib, even if he's your enemy, if someone, another Muslim, that's the condition, that another Muslim granted him asylum, you have to respect and honor that asylum. You have no reason and you have nothing binding in the Sharia that allows you to harm that person. In fact, the first thing that all of us will be asked about on Judgment Day, يوم القيامة, أول ما يحاسب عليه العبد يوم القيامة الصلاة. The first thing that all of us will be asked about is our salat. That is between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two is things that have to do with us. Me between you, you between myself. You killed me, I killed you. أول ما يقضى بين العباد يوم القيامة في الدماء. The first thing that people will be asked about on Judgment Day is ad-dima. Ad-dima meaning you killed fulan or fulan killed fulan, etc., etc. That's the first thing that will be brought up on Judgment Day. Now moving to the more fun stuff. If we were to really ask ourselves and look at ourselves in the mirror, why are our youth killing one another like this? I mean, they're Muslims. They read the Quran. They say the Shahada. They make namaz. They make salat. They went to the duksi. Why is it though that they're still killing one another like this? As if they're flies. We have to understand, my brothers and sisters, that the music industry, in the music videos, in movies in general, plays such a major role, whether you like to believe it or not. I'll give you a few examples. When you look at a lot of these gangster movies out here, you find that you have like the pimp, you have the Mac Daddy, you have the player, right? He's got all the shorties on deck. Ain't nobody messing with him, right? He's got shorties on lock. And so now when you look at that and you're being stimulated by that, you watch one movie, 2 movies, 3 movies, you feel now all that is being portrayed in not a negative way. All of that is being portrayed in a positive light. You look at that. Scarface, for example. Scarface, for those of you who watched that movie, he went out like a legend. Now, I don't believe that. The movie portrays that Scarface went out like a legend. Al Pacino, I believe it was, right? The ending of the movie is they came in and they sprayed him, but the way that was depicted that was a form of rujula. There was a movie I grew up when we were watching movies when we were growing up. I think it was called Set It Off, and it had Queen Latifah in there, and I'll never forget the image. And alhamdulillah alladhi hadana li hada wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. Alhamdulillah thumma alhamdulillah. I remember vividly until today a young man watching that movie. In my teens, Queen Latifah was driving a blue car. It was a convertible. And she was debating, should she just turn herself in? Or should she just drive by knowing for a fact and certainty that she's going to get killed? She put that car in drive and she went right in front of the cops and the cops sprayed the car down. But the way the movie portrayed her in that movie is if she was keeping it real to herself. As if it was a form of honor and courage to drive by in front of people who are going to shoot you. For what reason? Because you're breaking the law. Al Pacino the same way. I'm curious, out of curiosity, when you watch that movie, you leave away thinking like, man, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I got to do until the end. And even if I'm taken out like that, then I was taken out as a man of honor, courage. That ain't courage. What's so courageous about you waking up and you're being sprayed and you have cocaine next to you and you have whatever laying there? What's so manly and godly about that? So when you look at that, when you watch that, now you're in gangster mode. For the young men or young sisters, you're in gangster mode, right? You feel like now you want to be a gangster. Because you watch that movie, when you're done watching that movie, you're not encouraged to go to the masjid. When you watch that movie, you're encouraged now, let somebody talk to me the wrong way. Oh my mama, let somebody look at me the wrong way. And you're probably like 5'5". You're probably the shortest dude in the theater. But you still believe that you're going to take everybody and their mama out. Why? Because you're not in a real state. You're indoctrinated. You're living in a false sense of state. You now have taken in what you've seen on the television. You've soaked it in. But it's not reality. Because when you walk out of the theater and you see that 95% of the people are bigger than you and it will probably take you out, you kind of calm down a bit. You go from a lion to a cub. Why? Because now reality kicks in. Now reality kicks in. The same thing, now if you were to go from that, and of course a lot of these movies, it's not about being loyal to women, it's about treating women like garbage, it's about treating them like trash, etc., etc. You watch that movie, and let's say you have I met a Muslim recently who said, yeah, I moved from California to Minnesota because my girlfriend lives here. I said, oh, your girlfriend is Muslim? He said, yes. I said, right, yeah. Yeah, right, mashallah. I never knew there were Muslim girlfriends. May Allah guide them and open their hearts. We're not being judgmental. Calm down. Oh, who is he to judge? Calm down with that language, please. What I'm trying to get at here is that when you listen to that music, and let's say you have a girlfriend, you're like, man, who the hell does she think she is? Man, I'm a player. I don't got to be faithful to her. She ain't nobody anyways. It's not like I'm going to marry her. Now, you move from that movie and you go across the hall and let's say now you start watching Titanic. Now you get all sensitive and emotional, right? You went from a gangster to now I'm soft. Man, well, I think I'm just going to propose to her, man. And you're watching, you're weeping, and you're watching that movie. Now you've moved from a false state to now a different false state. The same thing when you're listening to music, right? When you're listening to Pac, 50 Cent, you're listening to Snoop, whoever the hell you're listening to. It is all garbage, by the way. That's kind of where they all have, that's the common denominator, right? When you listen to that music, you think you're a gangster in your heart. Now, when you listen to some soft R&B talking about, loving my boo and treating her right and bringing her flowers all day and massaging and caressing her feet, now you want to be all soft. Now you want to start spitting game like, well, I think I'm going to propose to her, man. Well, I think she's marriage material. What happened here? You're not focused. You know why? That's shaitan right there. That's the language of shaitan. Do you know why it's the language of shaitan? Because shaitan promises you, and then when you come and look for him, you don't find him. And that's the essence of khudlan. وقال الشيطان لما قضي الأمر إن الله وعدكم وعد الحق ووعدتكم فأخلفتكم وما كان لي عليكم من سلطان إلا أن دعوتكم فاستجبتم لي فلا تلوموني بمصرخي. This is what shaitan does. When shaitan gets you to act stupid, when he gets you to act foolish and stupid, this is what he says. He says, don't blame me. Don't be mad at me. I called you and you answered. Don't be mad at me. I invited you and you answered. I can't help you and you can't help me. So shaitan drags you. Because guess what? I don't know of a brother who's going to go kill another Muslim brother and he's listening to Sheikh Hasdis or Sheikh Hashrin. And he's listening to وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمْ. When you're going to murder somebody with the intention of murdering that person, spraying them down, gunning them down, you're not listening to Quran. You're probably listening to some rap music. You're probably listening to some gangster who's already done it. And people brag about this stuff out there. People got caught by the cops because they were looking for the killer, and that person included the lyrics of killing his next door neighbor in the CD itself. And that's how that person got caught. We feel flattered about this. And of course, you're looking at yourself like you're some deity. Don't never talk to me like that, man. He embarrassed me, man. And then you go looking for him, spraying him down, and you end up killing him. And not just him, you end up killing everybody who was there at the gathering. And then you go and you're waiting in the alley and you bought a gun, or maybe you stole a gun, and you're getting yourself into all along, what are you doing? And then you find yourself where? You find yourself in prison. You find yourself with what? You find yourself in prison, or you find yourself catching a felony. You find yourself with something now that is going to haunt the hell out of you for the rest of your life. But guess what? When you're in prison, or when you're locked up, or when you're caught, what are you telling yourself right now? Man, what the hell did I get myself into? By the way, hell is a bad place to be in. It's not a bad word. I grew up in elementary, they would say things like, no, it's H-E double hockey stick. No, it's hell. Hell is a bad place to be in, but it's not a bad word. So I'm not being vulgar here, please. The point here is that shaitan first, he built you up. He built you up, right? He created that gusto, that momentum, that energy. And then what he did is he threw you off the mountain. That's exactly what happens. You're feeling hard, you pull the trigger, you kill your fellow Muslim brother or sister, whoever it is, and then you find yourself in jail. And when reality kicks in, now you're asking yourself, what did I get myself into? Why am I here? Why is this happening? Shaitan is telling you, don't blame me. I called you and you answered. I told you to pull the trigger and you did it. I told you to go buy the gun and you did it. Don't blame me now. That's qimmat al-khudlan. Al-khudlan literally means is that you don't find the person you're looking for when you need them the most. That is qimmat al-khudlan. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه. Can you please, if you have room, come closer. We have a few brothers outside, so please, if you got room, come closer. Please get really, really close to each other, either in front of you or alongside of you. Here's what we don't want to keep critiquing and making things worse. A lot of people, what I've seen on social media, and I've seen this myself with my very own eyes, is people when they find their siblings, their loved ones being gunned down or murdered, the first one to be accused is the masjid. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Do you know why? The masjid is the second home, not the first home. The masjid does not have authority to bring their kids from their living room, to bring our kids from the laptops, to bring our kids from the YouTube, to bring our kids from the coffee places, etc., etc. The masjid is here to help. The first home is where? The first school is what? The first school is the home. And we have to get out of this victim mentality. Anytime a mistake happens, the father blames everybody but himself. And the mother blames everybody but herself. That we have to assume responsibility when we fall short. The masjid can only do so much. What can the masjid do when the kids are not here to begin with? What can the masjid do? We're talking about hitting numbers. How can they hit their numbers when the young men or the young women are not even here to begin with? So the masjid can only do so much. The first place وَيَنْشَأُ نَاشِئُ الْفِتْيَانِ مِنَّا عَلَى مَا كَانَ عَوَّدَهُ أَبُوهُ وَمَا دَانَ الْفَتَى بِحِجًا وَلَكِنْ يُعَلِّمُهُ التَّدَيُّنَ أَقْرَبُهُ. It is the people who are the closest to the young man or woman who is going to teach them the deen, who is going to teach them the fundamentals of our religion. That's number one. We have to get out of the mentality, this victim mentality. Anytime something happens in the community, we gotta go blame the masjid. We gotta write a post about the masjid. And I'm not saying it to defend this masjid. I've seen this back in Minneapolis. This happens. Anytime there's someone come down, we need more activities for the youth. I agree, but the youth, if they're not coming to the masjid, there's only so much that we ourselves can do. Furthermore, my brothers and sisters, parenting. Dear parents, don't get mad at me, but I'm gonna call a spade a spade. I, as a parent, when I come to America, and I know more about Somalia than I know more about my own area, that's a problem. Because our kids are not going back to Somalia. I know a lot of you don't want to hear this. As'alullah an tattasi'a sudurukum lima ana qailuhu lakum ameen. What I'm trying to get at here is I know this was related to me. My parents are so worried about the politics in Somalia, they have no idea where I'm at. They have no idea where the daughter's at. They have no idea where the son is at. You're in America. Focus on what's happening here. When you're seriously considering moving back to Somalia, worry about what's going on over there. Some of us parents will spend, bidun mujamala, 5-6 hours in front of Al Jazeera, worried about things that have absolutely no relativity to me, by extension my family, or by extension my kids. And we sit down and we talk about this as if we're going to change the world. We'll sit at the Starbucks for 5-6 hours talking about what? I don't even know where my son is. I don't know where my daughter is. Oh, they're at school and Allahumma barik wa masha'Allah. Ma yanfa. This is not right. You have to be involved in the lives of your children. You have to be involved. This idea of, wallahi, I trust them. We don't even know our own mayor in Columbus, for example. Some of us don't know who the mayor is in Columbus. Some of us probably don't know who and I'm not pointing fingers, but what I'm trying to say is that why be so preoccupied with what is going on back home? And every day I wake up, I'm here.
But I know more. Fascinating. Wallahi, there are some people who don't know Asma' al-Ashara al-Mubashirin bil-Jannah. If you were to say, brother, who are the 10 who are given glad tidings of Jannah? They will say, Abu Bakr, Umar, radiallahu anhu, Uthman, al-Bukhari, Muslim, ya Rasul. Yes. But ask them, who was assassinated in Somalia last year? Oh, Fulan ibn Fulan. Who came instead of him? Man halla makana? Fulan ibn Fulan. Who's his daughter? Oh, she's married to my qabila. And then they got a divorce, and then after they got a divorce, she moved to Israel. They know everything. That's useless. This is information that is garbage. Garbage. Your kids are not going to become better Muslims in America by you knowing everything and anything about what is going on back home. The same thing goes for the Arab. Parents know everything about Iraq. They don't know who their next door neighbor is, or who the mayor is at the school, or who's the mayor. The same thing, I'm not picking on the Somalis or the Arab. What I'm trying to say is that this mentality of, I gotta know everything that's going on back home, does it benefit you? Does it benefit the child? No. Absolutely not. And here's one mistake that certain parents do. You know, some parents, when there's a halaqah or there's a conference, you know what they'll do? They'll think as if they're doing their children a favor. They'll drive them here, and they'll say, Assalamu alaikum, have a good time. Make sure you benefit. It's good for you. And where does the father go? He has plans. Where? At the coffee shop. To do what? To talk about absolutely nothing important. Forgive me, I know there's qaswa there. It's okay. You can take it in. I'm not speaking to youngsters, I'm speaking to the grown men here, right? Do you know when you do that? It's as if you're telling your son, it's important, but it's not important enough. That's what you're telling your son. You go, it's good for you, but it's not good for me. When you create those bonds and those memories with your children will forever cherish and remember those memories. When you bring your children to the masjid, your children is always going to have those memories vivid with him or her by bringing them to the masjid. This idea of my children are a burden is in itself a burden. This idea of I'm just going to drop them off, call me when you're done. This doesn't work. Why aren't you a part of the progress? And last but not least, back to the brothers or the sisters. You know, some brothers, they get deluded and they say, look, this is just who I grew up with. These are my boys. These are my homies. I don't know anybody else. This is just how I grew up. I don't do weed. I don't smoke. I don't kill. I just hang out with people like that. Akhi, your wala is more important that you have your wala for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the believers. You don't necessarily have to be with them simply because you grew up with them. Some people will say, brother, I can't stop hanging out with them. We were friends since junior high. We were friends since elementary. Well, guess what? The Prophet ﷺ, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Allah, he says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Furqan, he says, وَيَوْمَ يَعَضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي اتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ الرَّسُولِ سَبِيلًا يَا وَيْلَتَهَا لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أَتَّخِذْ فُلَانًا خَلِيلًا لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. I don't even know why I'm trying. On Judgment Day, the person will bite on his hand. It is a sign of regret when it's too late. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ النَّدَمُ. I wish I didn't take Fulan ibn Fulan as a friend. He or she has misguided me from the straight path. He or she has misguided me from the straight path. I have 2 minutes. I know when I speak about friendship, immediately, a lot of our minds go immediately to the young men or women. That's wrong. What kind of friends are you keeping as the father? Yalla ya jama'a, yalla. Let's let it all out. What friends am I keeping as a father? Am I keeping friends around me who are doing absolutely nothing with their lives? They come and go and they're just, whether they're there or not is the same. We want our friends, we want our sons, our daughters, our kids to have beneficial friends. Our kids, they look and they learn. What kind of companionship does my father keep? What kind of companionship does my mother keep? Is my mother keeping companionship where every time they come, they're talking about Fulan got married, Fulan got divorced. They're talking about the latest musalsal. They're talking about the latest episode. They got married, they got a divorce. Fulan came instead of her, and she did sihr on her, and then they found out the sihr was done here. That's all they talk about. I'm not saying all of them. The girl, they pick up on that. Basically means that in a gathering, we should just talk about mundane, futile things. Kids pick up on companionship. So we as parents, we have to make sure that we're selective with our friends as well. That we're bringing people here that when my son, when I'm there with my friend, that person is saying something beneficial for my kids to listen to. That when I'm bringing him to my house, I want to make sure he's a person of taqwa, or she's a person of taqwa. People who are going to benefit from my children, and my children can benefit from them as well. اللهم إن كان من خطأ فمني ومن الشيطان وإن كان من صواب فمنك ومنك محض. اللهم يا حي يا قيوم ألف بين قلوبنا، اللهم ثبتنا على طاعتك وعلى دينك. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة، وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. هذا والله أدرى وأعلم، وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
استقيموا واعتدلوا. If you can be kind and shut your phones off, please. Your WhatsApp, your Google, your Viber, all that good stuff. You can shut it off, please. استقيموا واعتدلوا. الله أكبر.